Hey, LinkedIn, and welcome back to Business Unusual. This is a live show brought to you by the LinkedIn News team, where we're talking as a community about the changing nature of work. I'm Caroline Fairchild, editor-at-large at LinkedIn, coming to you from my home office here in New York City. Whether your state is still under lockdown or your city is just now trying to reopen, a lot of us have had to figure out how to entertain ourselves as well at home, as well as connect with others. Whether it's in-person events that are now canceled, we're spending a lot more time watching shows at home, according to new data from ComScore, ABC, CBS, Fox, and NBC. They've seen the biggest live TV viewership increases during the daytime. We're also forming relationships with others online more, as dating remotely becomes the only option for most. On today's show, we'll hear from a CEO whose dating app has had over a third of users go on a video chat date just in 1 week alone. We'll also hear from the TV host of the #1 primetime show last week, 90 Day Fiance, to hear how she's thinking about pivoting her career in entertainment to host this show from home. Justin McLeod, who's the CEO of Hinge, will join us at the top of the show to talk about what online dating looks like, particularly from a distance. But before I bring on Justin and Sean, I want to hear from you. The whole point of this show is to have a conversation as a community. How are you staying entertained at home? Are you dating? Are you using Hinge or one of the online apps to have connections with others? Connect with each other in the stream right now. And if you have questions for Justin or for Sean, please let us know, and we'll make sure and get to those questions later on in the show. And with that, I want to invite Justin to the stream.
Hi there.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Hinge has been around before this pandemic, but of course, the whole point of online dating is at some point to meet in person after meeting online. Talk to us a little bit about how this pandemic has affected user behavior on your app.
Yeah, we say that we're the app that's designed to be deleted, which means that we want people to come onto our app and get off as quickly as possible with their person out on real dates. And so obviously, coronavirus has thrown a wrench in that plan a bit. But at the core of that idea is that we really want people to really form an intimate connection with another person and really be outcome oriented in terms of wanting to actually get offline or wanting to actually form a relationship with them and stop using Hinge. And what we found has been that people are continuing to have, and maybe even more than ever, more meaningful connections in a world where they know that they can't meet up, that they can meet up physically at this point, but that they really get time to get to know each other, both through their chatting more, for sure. We saw chatting surge, especially when coronavirus just hit, by like 30%. And now we're seeing a pretty big increase in people's usage of video dating. In fact, about 40% of our users have gone on a video date with someone. So it's definitely changing the landscape of how people are dating right now.
Video dating, just the term itself sounds awkward to me. It sounds like a Zoom, but maybe with some romance in between. What are you hearing from users in terms of how they're adapting? Are they enjoying it? Are they able to establish real connections like this?
They are. I mean, what we found is that's definitely people's biggest fear, is that it's going to be awkward. And when people actually do it, they find about 90% of people say they have a really good experience. And more than half of them are saying that after coronavirus ends, this is something that they're going to continue to do. And when you think about it, I think it just makes a lot of sense that people, before you go through all the trouble and expense of meeting up with someone in person based on just seeing a picture or a few pictures and a couple answers to some questions, the idea of being able to get a sense of someone's vibe over video, given so many of us are used to using FaceTime and things like that with our friends, I just think that we've been on the tipping point for a while of this becoming a trend, and coronavirus has definitely, I think, sent this into a full trend for sure.
And for those of you who are just joining the stream, this is Business Unusual, where we're having a conversation about the changing world of dating right now with Justin McLeod. He's the CEO and co-founder of the dating app Hinge. I want to go ahead and say hello to some members in the stream: Lori from Ohio, Tyler from Florida, Marcelo from Italy, Andre from Wisconsin, Priscilla from Texas. Is Hinge in Italy for Marcelo out there?
Yeah, we're not in Italy yet, but we are in parts of Europe, and we'll soon to be in Italy.
All right, Marcelo, well, look out. I don't know if you're on the dating scene, but Hinge is coming for you. So much of Hinge in terms of who you connect with is based on algorithms and data. Do you have any data coming back in terms of what's been switching or how you've been matching people during this pandemic? And it used to be you could find people from afar, but with social distancing, you probably are going to want to meet people that are quite close to you.
Yeah, we haven't. I'm not aware of any changes in the way that we certainly haven't changed the way that the algorithm works. And I don't believe that people have changed. I mean, I think people do have hope that they will be able to meet each other. I've definitely heard of instances where people just, I think, are now spending a longer time vetting each other and getting to know each other. But at a certain point, I think people are meeting up. And I think even Dr. Fauci said that it's a pretty, it's a people meeting up one-on-one is not the main risk factor for coronavirus at this point. It's these big gatherings where a lot of people are coming together. So I do think that as we're starting to reopen right now, people do have an eye towards meeting up just the way that they were doing before, or maybe slightly modified. But I do think people have a hope of meeting up again soon.
And I'm sure you've seen this meme of the girl who says, oh, my wedding's being delayed because of the coronavirus. I mean, I'm not even dating anyone right now, but I'm sure the coronavirus will be delaying my actual wedding. What are you hearing from users in terms of the void that Hinge is filling right now? As so many people, particularly millennials, are in this part of their lives where they're trying to find someone, and we're all stuck in these little boxes right now.
Yeah, I don't think that it has to slow down your dating life at all. In fact, a third of our users said that they would start um, being exclusive with someone without even having physically met. So in some senses, we're all going through this. This is a really tough time, and I think that that shared experience can actually create more bonding than ever. So I think you'll actually see a lot of relationships come out of this period of time when people they have the time to really sit down and focus on their love lives thanks to apps like Hinge. And I think the other trend that I noticed is that we are stuck at home and a lot of us are bored. But I think that what we're really craving is connection. And I think that, while it can be entertaining to binge on Netflix or scroll through Instagram, it doesn't really feel like real connection. It just feels like I'm consuming more and more content, which is not necessarily making me feel more, I think, like relaxed and more connected and have more intimacy with people. And that's precisely when we say Hinge is designed to be deleted, it's really about helping people form intimate connections. So I do think services like Hinge are really helping people at this time, especially single people, especially in the cities where they really are holed up alone in their apartments. And so giving them that real sense of connection is really, really important.
And have you given any thought to how the pandemic overall will impact the way that we think about connection, both on and off the internet? What are you seeing in terms of what this coronavirus and us all spending so much time, in some cases alone, having an impact on online dating overall in terms of what this will look like coming out of the pandemic?
In terms of online dating, I do think the biggest thing is that people are going to adopt video dating as a central piece of how online dating works. I think it'll be a interim step. I don't think it's going to replace meeting up in person. I think it's just going to give people more confidence that when they do go meet up in person, that this is a person that they're going to want to be able to want to spend the evening with. That I think is going to be the biggest change for dating. And then more broadly, I hope that people really are tuned in and tapped into. I've been trying to raise awareness about digital addiction for a while, and I think in a world that we weren't just at home with no other options, that I'm not sure people were as cognizant of that. But I do think in this world where we really are just kind of like refreshing the news and checking Instagram and that kind of thing, how much that really weighs in our psyche and can really make us feel depressed and lonely, and how important it is for us to really get offline and have those real and human connections, which I know people are craving right now. So I hope there's some raising of awareness around that.
I want to go ahead and say hello to some members in the stream. Alexander says Hinge is the best. Mark says going exclusive without meeting in person first seems a little crazy. So maybe that's not for Mark. Justin, before I let you go, this loneliness, this digital anxiety that we all are experiencing right now, particularly in this pandemic, it's impacting so many members on LinkedIn, so many people I'm sure on the stream right now. Any advice for those who are trying to break away from spending so much time in front of their screens, or to find connection during this pandemic, which is making us also isolated?
Yeah, I mean, personally, what I found is creating boundaries is really, really important. I mean, when I finish for the evening now, I take my computer and I shut it and I put it in the corner, and then I put my yoga mat on top of it. So when I get up in the morning, I will pick that up before I pick up my computer again. And I think, other things that I've done is take a little morning commute and an evening commute, but I will go for a walk and then come back and start my workday, and then my workday is finished, I'll go for another walk. And just creating those like clear boundaries and rituals, I think, is really important. Otherwise, our work just starts to bleed into our evenings, and there's like everything blends together. And then I think that's when we really start to feel burned out and exhausted and tired and lonely.
Well, I know, Justin, after I get off of this broadcast, I will be putting my yoga mat on top of my computer. That sounds like a great tip. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Unusual. I'll talk with you soon.
Great. Thank you.
That was Justin McLeod. He is the CEO and co-founder of Hinge, talking to us about how social distancing has impacted the world of online dating. And our next guest has learned a lot about the world of dating through her hosting of 90 Day Fiance. 5 million people joined Sean Robinson earlier this week, I should say last week, for the reunion special for 90 Day Fiance that she hosted. I was one of them. And Sean's going to come on to talk to us about how she's been hosting this show that 5 million people watched from her living room and what she sees changing in entertainment moving forward. So with that, I want to bring on my friend, Sean Robinson.
Uh-oh, Caroline, I see a whole new crop of folks for the show after meeting on Hinged. I just want to say.
There's so much connection. And I gotta say, you know, Justin was saying that we don't feel connected to people watching television, but you and the show 90 Day Fiance, I feel like I know every single person on that show.
Don't you? Yes. I mean, everybody who watches the show does have a favorite couple, whether they love to hate them or just love them. They love to see how these relationships are evolving. I had told you, I had shared with you one time, I was in an airport lounge, and there was a gentleman, he had a New York Times newspaper, and I was talking to somebody in the lounge, and he peers over the newspaper. He says, your voice sounds familiar. Are you on 90 Day Fiance? And I said, well, I do host the show. And he started talking to me about how he and his wife are obsessed with it because it is the universal theme of finding love and just wanting to have this connection. And I think while many of us are spending more time in our homes, we are feeling that loss. And so that's one of the reasons why I think even more people are now tuning into the show.
Even more people, but I've been a diehard. And Sean, I don't even know if you remember this. I met Sean at a business conference. It was the Milken Institute conference in LA. And I sheepishly went up to Sean and I said, I am so embarrassed to say this. And she just cut me off and she goes, 90 Day Fiance.
You know, it always starts like that. People go, can I ask you a question? And I go, 90 Day Fiance, go ahead. Ask, what do you want to know?
But then I followed up. Sean is an incredible journalist, producer, author, philanthropist in her own right. And I was so happy to meet her. And I wanted to bring her on the show to just talk about what it's like hosting this television show that 5 million people are watching from your living room, from your couch. Take us back to the beginning of the pandemic when you realized that this was really going to impact your work.
Well, I have been hosting the tell-all reunion shows for TLC for 90 Day Fiance since 2016. And we always tape the show. I've done about, I think, 14 or 15 shows. We always tape in New York at a studio there. And so, but this time, obviously, we knew we could not do that. Nobody was traveling. We taped the show about a month and a half ago, when we knew we could not travel. We knew we could not gather in a filled group. So the producers came to me and they said, Sean, we got to do it in our home. And all of the couples did the show from their own home. So that meant getting a ton of equipment together. Now, fortunately, because I have a background in television news and in live news, I know about all of this stuff. But what they had to do, they had to send me the camera. They had to send me the microphone. They had to send me a number of, I was getting deliveries every single day. And what we had to do, my house is full of windows. And so I had to find a place in my home that was away from the windows, which was almost impossible. So what I had to do is I had to tape up all of my windows with this brown paper. So because we tape all day long, we actually taped the tell-all during 2 days. And so we didn't want the light to shift, obviously. And so I was taping up paper all over my windows and making sure everything was blacked out. So my house was really, really dark. And then it was about just testing out the equipment, making sure that the connection was clear and making sure that I could hear the producers talk to me in my IFB. And obviously, because I use an IFB all the time when I'm on camera, that was not foreign to me. But it was getting everybody used to using that equipment and adjusting the cameras and everything. So it was a really, really big task.
I'm sure my producer, I complain with my producer that I have to go sit in my closet to do voiceover for videos.
Right.
Because, and so I'm sure after hearing that, he's going to say, stop complaining about everything, Caroline. Look what Sean has to do.
And, I did it in front of, this is not the angle. I'm in my office right now, and there's another angle that is against my bookcase. And, we are very careful about bookcases. And if you notice, a lot of people who are doing online interviews, they will do it in front of a bookcase, but the network has to be very careful about, certain books. You don't know what books you have on your bookshelf, so you have to make sure that they are really out of frame. I have a camel that I got from Israel, and I put it on the bookshelf, and I don't know how many people asked me. People were DMing me, Sean, where do I get that camel? Where do I get that camel? I had to make sure. I have a lovely painting from a girlfriend of mine, a Spelman College sister of mine, Lisa Robinson, painted. I couldn't even show that because they want to make sure there are no paintings or anything, because obviously we are concerned about copyright law. So there's a lot that goes into choosing the background when you are doing interviews like this on television.
That is definitely something that I've never thought about, but with 5 million people watching, it makes a ton of sense. What were your communications like with TLC when thinking about conceptualizing the show? Did they know that it was going to be as big of a hit as it was, given that everyone was going to be in these little Brady Bunch boxes for 2 hours?
Well, it's interesting. I said, God, here's what happens. A lot of times when the couples come to the studio, we usually tape on a Saturday, and they might kind of hang out the night before, which they're not supposed to do. And, what we want is we want fresh conversation. We want to make sure that, they save the, any, really good conversations for camera. It's a show. So I was thinking that, wow, they're in their own homes. The conversation is not going to be as lively. I'm thinking this. I said, because they're not face to face, and they're not, there's not that intimacy that you have when you're right on set. Oh boy, was I wrong on that one. When you're in your own home, you got a really big mouth. I tell you, you say everything you want to say. It was the comfort of them being in their own home, I think, that made them even more honest. Mm-hmm. So we had a lot of lively conversations between the couples. And when the show first began, the conversation was more about their relationships, the relationship between the couple, or their in-laws and family and friends. But now, with more of them using social media, they start these conversations online. And so that becomes also a part of the show. So it was very, very lively.
And really what you're talking about is that the quality of the show did not diminish because everyone was from their home, because you were hosting at home, which I think was a fear of a lot of major networks who are now asking all of their hosts to entertain, to do interviews just like this from home. Do you think this is going to impact the entertainment industry long term? The cost must be much lower to produce something like this as opposed to designing a beautiful set and flying everyone in.
Sure. And I think the challenge that we are facing now is as innovative as people are being during this, the pandemic, you still want different locations. Like I have a role on a drama series, Games People Play on BET. I play a role. I play a woman by the name of Chris Kensington. And so we shoot, our production has been delayed. We were supposed to start shooting in May. Now we're going to start shooting in August. What that is going to look like is still being determined. There are a lot of productions here in Los Angeles that are trying to figure out, how do we keep people safe? How do we make sure the set is safe, but also give you a quality program? The audience doesn't want to see everybody on screen on every single show. They don't want to see everybody in a little box. That's just the truth of the matter. So every single studio, every single network is trying to figure out, How do we give you quality, creative, unique programming that is true to our brand, but still operate in this new normal? So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. And also remember, we are talking about getting a second wave at the end of the year, or rather in the fall. So we still have to keep that in mind.
And in your conversations with directors and producers about this second wave and about when are we actually going to be able to get on set together and start producing, what are the biggest challenges in terms of bringing everyone together right now in this climate?
Well, as we said, it is about large groups, and that's what makes for a greater risk. So just like we have been operating in our daily lives, maybe going to the grocery store or going to your doctor's office, it is going to become like, taking temperature, making sure we're social distancing, possibly quarantining people before they go on set. That is also a possibility. And obviously, everybody's been at their home. They're ready and willing to get out. However, we have to make sure that everybody remains safe. And a lot of that deals with personal responsibility for actors, for writers, for everyone to be able to say, yes, I've been social distancing, or I don't feel well, so I'm not coming in. So it's going to be incumbent upon all of us to make sure the set is a safe place.
I want to say hello to some members in the stream. Mia says, much respect for Sean Robinson. So it looks like you have just, I'm sure, tons of fans, but a few that are commenting right now saying hello to you, Sean. And also to Colin, he's talking about online matchmaking. Thanks for joining us, Colin, as well. Sean, we've been talking about how the pandemic is going to change the world of entertainment, but I also wanted to talk to you about how the protests, these national protests that are going on right now amid this pandemic, are going to impact entertainment long term. I actually want to bring up a share of yours that you posted on LinkedIn just recently to get your take on this. You posted this and you said, most women I know have been in this room. That is incredibly true, particularly in the entertainment industry.
Yes.
What is your hope in terms of how the Black Lives Matter movement will impact diversity within entertainment?
Okay. How much more time do we have, Caroline?
As much time as you need, girl.
Listen, I posted, even before I posted that particular post, and that was an African-American woman or woman of color being in a job interview, and she is being interviewed by all white men, and she's being asked, what can you bring to this company? I think every woman of color has been asked that question before a panel, a desk of people who don't look like her. And what I hope is that what we're seeing is not a trend in terms of companies saying we really are committed to diversity. So here's the thing. I posted something else on my LinkedIn, and it was a message to my friends who are white, because when all of these protests started, I got a lot of private messages from my white friends. How are you doing? I support you. Isn't it awful about what happened to George Floyd? And, it's so terrible. And I said on my post, I said, thank you very much for these messages. But what I need you to do is to be an ally and to say those things publicly. Sending me a personal message that says, I support you, doesn't help. What I need you to do is to be a public ally. And a lot of my friends who are white responded to that and said, yes, I do need to speak up, but I don't know how. And what I offered was, use your social media. I see you on it every day. Post about Black Lives Matter, post about the inequities that you see people of color experiencing. Also, and this is really important, Caroline, I urge my friends who are white, the ones who say they are allies, to use their voice and stand up to those people in your inner circle, in your own family, that person who, the person that always says the things that you don't agree with, every single white person I know who is a friend of mine says to me, yeah, my uncle's a bit of a racist, or my dad, or my next door neighbor, or somebody, but I never say anything. Now is the time to say something, because here's the thing. You have a circle of influence, okay? You have a circle of influence. And that uncle in your family, that cousin, the neighbor, they may be in the HR department at a company. They may be a police officer. They may be somebody in a hiring position. They also have a circle of influence. And so that person, when you have open up a conversation with them about racial equality and how Black Lives Matter and how, we need to see a change in what we're seeing on our streets. When you do that, when you take your own circle of influence and have these conversations, it brings more open minds. It may help somebody else change their behavior down the line.
It's such a critical point. It's not just about posting on social media about these issues, but also it's about just making sure you're having these conversations behind closed doors, the really uncomfortable ones. Sean, you talk about circles of influence. Yours is quite large. And I know outside of 90 Day Fiance, you're doing work to lift up the voices of Black people. Let us know about the projects that you're working on and how that's been going right now.
Well, I lift up not only Black voices, but I lift up all voices. I have a foundation, the Sean Foundation for Girls. And what we do is we support small grassroots nonprofits that are doing work in 5 key areas of girls' issues. And those 5 key areas are represented by the acronym of my name, SHAUN. So S is for STEM, H is for health, A is arts, U is unity, and N is neighborhood. So if there is a nonprofit that is doing work in one of those 5 key areas, we would possibly be a resource for them. And so what we focus on is empowering underserved and underrepresented girls, many of those girls of color, but girls from all races. So, there is a lack of funding out there for girls' issues. And so I wanted to, since I am in a position that I have a platform and I have a voice, I want to be in a position to help those girls and to help them see themselves beyond what their current circumstances are. So that is a passion of mine. Also, let's see. As I said, I'm on the show Games People Play on BET. I host this little show called 90 Day Fiance, my foundation. And there are a few other things that I'm working. Forgot to tell you, I'm working on a documentary about implicit bias towards African-American girls. And I shared with you this information. I am so very excited because this is a needed conversation right now about how our society sees African-American girls and how that affects their own self-esteem and their chances for success. So that is something that is in production now that I'm very excited about, and I can't wait to bring it to the LinkedIn community.
Well, Sean, as thankful as I am for all your work on 90 Day Fiance, I am even more thankful, and I know the stream is, for all your work off of that platform as well. Thank you so much.
Is it over already?
What was that?
Is it over already?
It's over already. That's all the time we have for today.
I love talking to you.
Well, text me. We'll talk later today.
Okay, good.
All right, Sean.
All right.
Good seeing you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. That was Sean Robinson, the host of 90 Day Fiance, as well as an Emmy award-winning journalist, talking about her work and how she's advancing the voices of Black people, Black women in this challenging time. I want to thank her for coming on today's show. This is Business Unusual, a live show where we're talking as a community about the changing nature of work. Tomorrow, my colleague Susie Jackson will be here talking with business owners about how they're changing what they're doing on the front lines. It's not a conversation that you're going to want to miss. So please come back here at LinkedIn News Page at 12 Eastern tomorrow. I'm Caroline Fairchild. Thank you so much for joining us.